Lila ran through the empty streets with only a small bag in her hand. The rain poured down, soaking her clothes and chilling her to the bone, but she did not stop. She could not go back. Everything in her past was a trap, and she needed to escape. Every step took her farther from the town she had known all her life, farther from the memories that hurt too much. She did not have a plan, only the hope of finding a place where no one knew her name. When she reached the next town, she found a small apartment above a quiet bakery. The place was cheap, and the owner did not ask many questions. Alila was grateful for anything that would let her disappear. She started working at the bakery as a waitress, keeping her head down and her heart closed. She spoke little and avoided people. She did not want to get attached. She could not afford to love anyone. Her past had taught her that love always ended in pain. Ethan entered the bakery one afternoon. He looked tired and his clothes were worn, but there was something in his eyes that caught Lila's attention. He ordered a coffee and a sandwich, then sat in the corner quietly. She noticed him, but she did not think much of it. Many people came and went. She smiled politely, served him, and moved on. Over the next few days, Ethan returned. Sometimes he came for breakfast, sometimes for lunch. Lila began to notice the small things about him. He always left a tip, even when he could barely afford it. He spoke to her with respect and kindness, never rushing or demanding. Lila found herself looking forward to his visits, though she refused to admit it. One evening, after a long shift, Ethan stayed behind to help clean up. They worked together in silence at first, moving dishes and wiping counters. Then, Ethan asked Lila how her day had been. She shrugged, not used to talking about herself. He did not push, only listened. His patience made her feel safe in a way she had not felt in years. For a moment, she almost believed that people could be good. As the weeks passed, their small talks became longer. Ethan shared pieces of his life, told her about losing his job, about the struggles of taking care of his younger brother, about the dreams he had for a better future. Lila listened quietly. She did not speak of her past, but in his presence she felt lighter. She felt something she had thought she lost long ago. It was not happiness yet, but it was the first step toward it. One rainy night, Ethan walked Lila home. The streets were dark, and the rain had stopped, leaving everything wet and shiny. They reached her apartment, and neither moved to leave. Lila felt a strange flutter in her chest. She did not understand it. She had promised herself she would never let anyone get close again, yet she wanted him to stay. She wanted to feel his presence, to hear him speak, to see him smile. Ethan looked at her, his eyes soft and patient. He said nothing, but Lila felt the weight of his gaze. She realized that for the first time in a long time, she did not feel alone. The fear of her past still lingered, but it was quieter now. She knew that she could trust him, at least a little. The thought made her heart race. As Ethan finally turned to leave, he smiled gently. Lila watched him go, a strange warmth in her chest. She knew that her life was changing, slowly, in ways she could not yet understand. She was still running from her past, but for the first time, she felt that maybe, just maybe, she could stop running. Someone who made her believe that love could exist even for a heart that had been broken too many times. Over the next few weeks, Lila and Ethan grew closer. Their conversations at the bakery became a routine, small moments that Lila began to cherish. Ethan talked about his struggles openly, told her about the nights he could not sleep, worrying about paying rent and keeping his younger brother fed. Lila listened quietly, sometimes offering advice or helping with small tasks. She felt needed, and it made her heart beat faster than she expected. Lila had never shared her past with anyone. She feared judgment and rejection. Yet, in Ethan's presence, she felt a strange safety. She did not want to admit it, but she started waiting for his visits. Sometimes, she caught herself staring out the window, hoping to see him walking down the street toward the bakery. Each smile he gave her felt like a small spark, igniting something deep inside. One morning, Ethan invited Lila to help him with a small project at his apartment. He wanted to fix a leaky faucet and clean the old furniture he had managed to collect. Lila hesitated, nervous about stepping into his world, but curiosity and a desire to be close pushed her to accept. When she arrived, she saw the challenges he faced every day. The apartment was small and worn, but Ethan treated it with care. He worked hard to make it a home for himself and his brother. Lila offered to help, and they spent the day together repairing what they could. They laughed when things went wrong, argued lightly over the best way to fix the faucet, and shared a simple lunch at the small kitchen table. The warmth of the room, the sound of their laughter, and the sight of Ethan's determined face made Lila feel something she had not allowed herself to feel for years. She began to realize that maybe love was not about wealth or ease. It was about moments like these, shared with someone who truly cared. As evening came, they sat quietly on the small couch, exhausted but content. Ethan looked at Lila and thanked her for helping him, not just with the work, but with his life. Lila felt a lump in her throat. She wanted to tell him she felt the same, but the words stuck in her chest. Instead, she smiled softly, hoping he understood without words. Over the next few days, Lila noticed small changes in herself. She smiled more easily, laughed without hesitation, and even felt hope for the first time in years. Ethan's presence was healing, and though she still feared her past, it seemed less powerful. She began to believe that maybe, with someone like Ethan, she could survive anything. One rainy evening, Ethan invited Lila for a walk after work. The streets glistened with water, and the city lights reflected in puddles. They walked side by side in silence at first, letting the comfort of being together speak for them. Then, Ethan gently took Lila's hand. It was a simple gesture, but it made her heart race. She did not pull away. Instead, she held his hand tightly, feeling the warmth and strength of his grip. They talked as they walked, sharing small stories about their childhoods, favorite foods, and secret dreams. Lila discovered that Ethan had once wanted to be an artist, a dream he had set aside to take care of his brother. She encouraged him, promising he could still chase it someday. Ethan looked at her with gratitude, and in that moment, Lila realized they had begun to depend on each other in ways neither could explain. That night, when Ethan left, Lila stood by the window and watched him walk away. She felt a deep longing, but also a strange peace. Her heart, once closed, was slowly opening. She knew there would be challenges ahead, but for the first time, she felt ready to face them with someone by her side. Ethan had become more than a friend. He was becoming her anchor, the first person in years she could trust completely. Lila thought she could leave her past behind, but had found her. One afternoon, a man arrived at the bakery asking for her. He knew her name and spoke of things only she could know. Fear gripped her chest. She felt trapped and powerless. She had run so far, yet her past had caught up. She considered leaving again, but she knew running could not solve everything. Ethan noticed her anxiety and gently asked what was wrong. Lila hesitated, not wanting to burden him. Finally, she whispered that someone from her past had come looking for her. Ethan did not panic, took her hand and promised that he would help her face it. The reassurance gave Lila a strange comfort she had not felt in years. They decided to confront the man together. Ethan stayed by her side as they met at a quiet park. Lila's past was harsh and unkind, but Ethan stood firm, shielding her from fear and harm. He spoke calmly and clearly, letting the man know that Lila would no longer be controlled or hurt. The man left, defeated, and Lila realized that having someone to fight for her made her stronger than she had ever been alone. After the confrontation, Lila felt a wave of relief and exhaustion. She leaned on Ethan as they walked back to the bakery. She wanted to cry, but instead, she felt a small smile emerge. She knew that she had survived, and more importantly, she had not been alone. Ethan's presence had turned fear into strength. Over the next days, Lila and Ethan spent more time together. They talked late into the night, sharing stories and secrets. Lila found herself trusting him more with every word. She spoke of dreams she had buried, of places she wanted to see, and of hopes she had long forgotten. Ethan listened and encouraged her, never judging. He shared his own dreams and fears, and Lila realized that they were no longer just two lonely people. They were partners in every sense. Their bond grew deeper when Lila helped Ethan with his brother. She cooked meals and played games, bringing laughter into a home that had known only struggle. Ethan watched her carefully, grateful for her kindness. He felt a love growing that he had never expected, a love that was steady and enduring. Lila saw the same in him. They began to depend on each other for support, hope, and comfort. One evening, after a long day, They sat together on the worn couch in Ethan's small apartment. The room smelled of home-cooked food and faint candle smoke. Ethan reached for Lila's hand, holding it firmly. He looked into her eyes and said that he was glad she was in his life. Lila felt warmth rush through her body, realizing that she felt the same. She wanted to tell him, but the words felt fragile. She squeezed his hand, letting her heart speak without speaking. They spent quiet nights like this, side by side, feeling the comfort of being together. The challenges of life were still there, but now they faced them as a team. Lila understood that true love was not only about joy and laughter, but about standing together when fear and pain arrived. She had run from her past for so long, but now she had found someone who made her want to stay. Someone who gave her courage to face anything. Lila knew that more hardships would come. Life would test their love, and old memories would sometimes return. But she also knew that with Ethan, she could endure. I had shown her that love could heal, that trust could be built again, and that running was no longer the only choice. She had found a home not in a place, but in a person. And that realization filled her with a strength she never thought she could have. Life was not easy for Lila and Ethan, but they faced it together. Ethan struggled to keep his small apartment in order, work enough hours to pay bills, and care for his younger brother. Lila helped whenever she could, cooking meals, fixing broken things, and supporting him emotionally. Every day was a challenge, but they learned to find joy in simple things. They laughed at small mistakes and celebrated little victories. They began to dream together, even if the dreams seemed impossible. Ethan wanted to find a better job, something that would allow him to provide a stable life for his brother and for them. Lila dreamed of traveling and exploring new places, and she shared her dreams with Ethan. He listened carefully, encouraged her, and promised they could work toward these dreams together. The shared hopes made them feel closer and gave them strength to face their struggles. Their love grew in the small moments. Cooking dinner together, washing dishes side by side, walking through the park, and talking late at night became the pillars of their relationship. They learned each other's habits, likes, and dislikes. They found comfort in routines and the quiet presence of each other. Lila began to notice how Ethan's smile could brighten the darkest day. And Ethan realized how Lila's laughter could heal his tired heart. One afternoon, Ethan received news that his former job was offering him a small opportunity to return. It was not perfect, but it was a start. Lila encouraged him to accept it, knowing it would bring hope and stability. Ethan hesitated, fearing failure, but Lila reminded him that he was not alone. Together, they could face any challenge. Ethan felt a deep gratitude for Lila's belief in him and promised to work hard. Not only for himself, but for their shared future. Their evenings were filled with small acts of love. Ethan fixed broken furniture, and Lila helped paint and clean. They cooked together, shared meals at their small table, and talked about hopes for the future. Even in struggle, their love gave them moments of peace and happiness. They learned to rely on each other, finding strength in the bond they had created. As time passed, they became more open with each other. Lila shared parts of her past she had never told anyone, and Ethan listened without judgment. He told her about fears he had hidden for years. These moments made their love stronger. They realized that being honest and vulnerable was not a weakness, but a way to grow closer. One rainy evening, they walked through the empty streets holding hands. The world around them felt quiet and still. Lila looked at Ethan and felt a surge of emotion. She had run from her past for so long, but now she understood that life was not about running. It was about finding someone who made the hardships bearable. Ethan looked at her with the same feeling. They did not need words. Their connection was strong enough to speak for them. They returned home, tired but happy. The struggles of life were still there, but they faced them together. Lila realized that love was not only about happiness, but also about sharing burdens and supporting each other. Ethan felt the same. Together, they were building a life full of small victories, quiet moments of joy, and a love that could survive any challenge. Their hearts were no longer closed, and each day brought new hope and strength. Just when life seemed to settle for Lila and Ethan, tragedy struck. Ethan's younger brother fell ill, and the medical bills piled up quickly. Ethan worked extra hours, but it was not enough. Felt helpless, and Lila watched as his strong spirit wavered. She tried to support him, cooking meals, keeping the apartment clean, and offering comfort. but the fear and sorrow in Ethan's eyes were hard to ignore. Lila's past also returned unexpectedly. A letter arrived, threatening to reveal secrets she had long tried to hide. She felt the old fear creep in, the fear that had driven her to run for so long. She wanted to leave again, to disappear and escape the pain. Ethan noticed her distress and refused to let her face it alone. He told her that they would handle it together and that she no longer had to fight alone. The challenges took a toll on their relationship. Lila became withdrawn, and Ethan grew frustrated with his inability to fix everything. For a while, it seemed that the love they had fought for might not survive the pressure. Lila considered leaving, thinking she was doomed to repeat the mistakes of her past. Ethan thought he was not strong enough to protect the people he loved. One evening, after a long and silent dinner, Lila looked at Ethan and saw the exhaustion in his eyes. She realized that they both were hurting, but running away would solve nothing. She reached out, holding his hands firmly. Ethan looked at her, and for the first time in days, he allowed himself to be vulnerable. They shared their fears, their pain, and their frustrations. The act of opening their hearts, even in the middle of chaos, reminded them why they loved each other. They made a decision to face their struggles together. Ethan continued working hard to care for his brother and cover the expenses. And Lila handled the threats from her past with courage she had not known she possessed. They learned to communicate, to be patient, and to forgive the small mistakes caused by stress. Each challenge became a test, and with each test, their bond grew stronger. They found small ways to care for each other. Lila would bring Ethan coffee when he worked late. Ethan would fix small things around the apartment to make life easier for her. They laughed when they could, even in the hardest times, finding comfort in the moments of joy amidst the pain. The hardships did not disappear, but they learned to face them side by side. The love that had started quietly in the bakery now became a force that neither could ignore. They realized that real love was not about avoiding pain or running from problems. It was about holding on when life was hardest, about being there even when nothing went as planned. Lila and Ethan discovered a strength they did not know they had, a strength born from caring deeply for someone who cared deeply for them in return. The days were still difficult, but hope began to return. Ethan's brother grew stronger, and the threats from Lila's past were dealt with. Their hearts had been tested and found strong. They learned that love could survive pain, fear, and hardship, and that even in the darkest times, they could find each other. Their bond was no longer fragile, but unshakable. And they understood that together, they could endure anything that life sent their way. Lila and Ethan decided to face their problems together. The weight of their struggles was heavy, but neither wanted to walk alone anymore. They worked side by side to handle every challenge. Ethan continued to provide for his brother, now with Lila's help, and she faced the shadows of her past with courage. Together, they became stronger than either had been alone. They found comfort in the small routines of life. Mornings were spent preparing breakfast, sharing quiet smiles and laughter. Days were full of work, errands, and small acts of kindness toward each other. Evenings became a time to sit together, talk, and dream. Even in the hardest moments, they found a way to support and encourage each other. Their love grew not through ease, but through the trials they faced as a team. One afternoon, Ethan received a call about a better job opportunity. It would require long hours and more responsibility, but it promised stability. Lila encouraged him to take it. She knew he was capable and reminded him that they would face it together. Ethan hesitated, fearing he could fail, but Lila's confidence in him gave him courage. He accepted the job, ready to work hard and build a better life for them both. Their bond deepened with every challenge they overcame. Lila helped Ethan organize bills, manage his responsibilities, and care for his brother. Ethan encouraged Lila to follow her own dreams, even helping her plan small trips to places she had always wanted to see. They celebrated each victory, no matter how small, knowing that each step brought them closer to the life they wanted together. They spent quiet nights holding hands, talking about their pasts and their future. Lila shared memories she had kept hidden for years, and Ethan listened with patience and love. He told her about his fears, his regrets, and his hopes. Each conversation strengthened the trust between them. They realized that love was not only about happiness, but about being present for each other in moments of fear, pain, and uncertainty. Their apartment became a home filled with warmth, laughter, and care. Ethan repaired broken furniture, and Lila painted and cleaned. They cooked meals together, sometimes making mistakes and laughing at them. These simple actions became the foundation of their relationship. They no longer feared life's struggles because they knew they had each other to rely on. One rainy evening, they walked through the streets holding hands. The world was quiet and reflective, the rain leaving a sheen on the pavement. Lila looked at Ethan and felt a surge of emotion. She had spent so many years running, but now she understood that life was not about avoiding problems. It was about finding someone who could make the hardships bearable. Ethan felt the same. They did not need words. Their connection was strong enough to speak for them. They returned home, tired but content. The challenges of life remained, but they were no longer alone. Lila understood that true love was about partnership, about sharing burdens, and about standing together when times were hardest. Ethan felt the same way. Together, they built a life of small victories, quiet joy, and a love that could survive any storm. They had fought for each other, and the strength of their bond became unshakable. Finally, Lila and Ethan reached a point where they could breathe without fear. The struggles of the past and present had tested them, but their love had grown stronger. Ethan's job was steady now, allowing him to care for his brother and save for a future. Lila felt safe and wanted in a way she had never experienced before. They had built a life together, brick by brick, through effort, patience, and unwavering support. They spent mornings preparing breakfast and talking about the day ahead. Afternoons were filled with work and errands, but they always made time for each other. Small gestures, like holding hands while walking or sharing a quiet laugh over a meal, became the moments that defined their love. They no longer feared hardships because they knew they could face anything together. Lila shared her dreams with Ethan, telling him about places she wanted to visit and experiences she hoped to have. Ethan encouraged her, promising that they could achieve these dreams as a team. He showed her that love was not only about being together, but also about helping each other grow. They planned small trips and activities that brought them closer and gave them hope for the future. Their apartment was now a home filled with warmth and care. Ethan fixed what needed fixing, and Lila kept the space tidy and welcoming. They cooked meals together, learning each other's habits and preferences. Every small task became an act of love and partnership. The home they had created was a reflection of their journey, showing that even in struggle, love could flourish. One evening, after a long day, they sat together on the couch, tired but happy. Ethan reached for Lila's hand, holding it firmly and looking into her eyes. He told her that he was grateful for her presence in his life, and that he could not imagine facing the world without her. Lila felt a rush of emotion. She squeezed his hand, silently letting him know that she felt the same. Their hearts were in sync, and the bond between them was unbreakable. They began to talk about their future more openly. Lila expressed her desire to travel and explore, and Ethan promised that they would make time for these dreams. They discussed long-term plans, supporting each other's goals and ambitions. The fear that had once dominated Lila's life was gone, replaced by hope, trust, and love. They had learned that life was not about running, but about finding someone who could make every challenge easier to bear. The nights were peaceful. They often stayed up late, talking quietly, or simply sitting together. They reflected on how far they had come, from running from the past to building a life full of care and partnership. Every challenge they faced had strengthened their bond, teaching them that true love required patience, courage, and unwavering support. The world outside could still be harsh, but inside their hearts and their home, they had found peace. Lila and Ethan knew that together, they could face anything. The past no longer held power over them, and the future was bright with promise. They had fought for each other, held on during the hardest times, and discovered a love that was strong, enduring, and true. Finally, Lila realized that she had found a home in Ethan, not just a place, but a person who made her feel complete. Ethan felt the same, knowing that with Lila by his side, life was worth every struggle. Together, they had achieved what they had both longed for. Love that could survive every storm, and a life that they could build together, hand in hand, forever.